Hey everybody, welcome to my newest tutorial for the Satin Rose Wreath pattern and kit. Here's a little outline of what I'm going to be talking about if you want to skip around. Let's get started. So for the different colorways I've created, obviously we have like this ombre thing going on with the flowers here, the roses. So the large rose has 3 colors, the small roses have 2 colors. Pretty easy to figure out. Then there's like a main color for the large leaves. What I actually want to tell you about is just that all the other leaves, there's like 3 different greens left at that point. And, you know, in the pattern, I do point out each one if you want to make it exactly like mine, but they're interchangeable. That's the short thing I'm trying to tell you. So I just, when I placed them on the hoop, I just tried to spread them out. So I didn't have like the mint green all over here. You know, I spread it out all pretty. Okay, that's all. So don't worry too much about the guide if you get confused, because there's, you know, a lot of things going on here. Number of threads, I used all 6 strands for these hoops. This is 8 inches. If you're going to go smaller, you're probably going to want to use fewer. You can use fewer here too if you want a more delicate look. All up to you if you want to go more chunky like this, or if you want it to look more delicate. And then the stitches. So at the end of the video, I'm going to do an actual stitch along. But in general, once again, everything's interchangeable. So whatever you want to use for these vines. For some of them, I used stem stitch. For some of them, I used back stitch. I think that's all I did here, but you could also do split stitch, chain stitch, whatever. Couching. I just added a little bit of those 2, I think is all I did here, yeah. But if you want to add more to have more to practice, go for it. And then the same with the leaves. Let's see, for some of these, you can see I left them naked. Those vines, those are the ones that are actually the detached chain stitch for the leaves, because I don't like to mark those on here because I'm afraid that I will like box you in. So that's what's going on there. And then also like these little detached chain flare here, I did not include that. So if you want to add it or not, or add extra in places, you know, make it even more full, do it. Have fun. Okay, that's that. So let's talk about the alphabet. Okay, this is included in the pattern. I am not a designer of fonts or a hand lettering artist, so this is what you get. I'm hoping to do something fancier in the future with someone who knows what they're doing. But until then, it looks good, right? It turned out good. So let me show you how I'm doing this. So, basically, I'm going to use a piece of, what is this called? It's paper, obviously. You can use regular paper. I'm using this skinny paper. Oh my goodness, my words. I'll remember in a few minutes and feel like an idiot. So anyways, I'm making a line here with a ruler. And I'm just going to match it up to the lines here. Not so much up here with the uppercase, because I feel like you might want to change where you have your uppercase letter in comparison to your lowercase. You might not want them on a straight line. Like you can see here, I did my name, and I had the J like down a little bit. So for this first line I did was for the uppercase letter, and then you can see I have my lowercase letters up higher. For the most part, the letters are going to match up pretty well. In some cases, they won't. So here, nachos, you can see like the O ends up high and my S starts low. So you're going to have to be creative here. Maybe try your own handwriting, see what it looks like in that case. What would I actually do? Let's see. I would do something like that. So this would be super high. But if you don't like that, do something else. So here you're going to, you know, there's going to be spots where you're going to have to be a little creative. These all looked okay. Yeah, I think that was the only spot. Because here with the O, it matches up. So that's that. So let's see. Let's say I want another word. How about fancy? Like fancy feast. Let's do uppercase F. I am lining up my letter here. Once again, you don't have to with the uppercase. I'm just tracing paper. Thank God. Oh my gosh. This is called tracing paper, guys. Did you know that? I can just imagine everyone shouting at their computer, "It's tracing paper, Jessica! Get it together!" Like, I write myself notes, so I hopefully don't forget too much stuff, but you know, they talk about mom brain, how it never goes away. It's true. So, fancy. There's my N. And I'm just putting the letters close enough so that they touch. There's no like rule if you want them a little closer or a little farther apart. So I'm just kind of making it so they just touch, like it's cursive, because it's fancy. All right, and then my Y. Ta-da! Fancy. Okay, so did I lose my Sharpie? Here it is. So I'm going to use a Sharpie now to outline. Just this way it'll be easier to see through my fabric when I trace it. Hopefully you'll go slower than I'm going, so you won't screw up the writing. So let's say we'll do fancy cheese. This is not actually what I'm gonna put on my hoop, but I'm trying to demonstrate here. I haven't decided yet what I'm gonna put on my hoop. But I do like fancy cheese. Okay. So then I would literally get out some scissors and some tape and cut it out. Also, you may need to change the size. So whether you do that by just printing the alphabet larger or creating your word first like I'm doing and then using your printer to shrink or enlarge. Fancy cheese. So I would make sure when I would add two words together, this is kind of nice thing with the tracing paper, because if I need to make them super close like this, I can and still see through. Oops. But I want to make sure at this point that my two lines here are parallel. Otherwise, I'm going to have my words going in different directions. Like something like that. Okay, and then piece of tape. Fancy cheese. So there we go. Then I would take this and stick it back here. You want to make sure it's centered. So one thing you could do, you could always put a dot here where's the center of your letters, and then where's the center on my hoop. So let's say I use my water-soluble pen. That looks pretty centered to me. You can use a ruler if you're really into that. Center. All right, and then you would just trace it. Like I said, this is not actually what I'm going to embroider. If I did, I'd probably want to make it bigger. But then I would just trace on here. So as far as what stitches you want to use, I have an entire tutorial that goes over many different stitches. So please see that. At the end of the stitch along, I will do the couching again. When I did the other hoop here, my demo hoop, first I tried this with the chain stitch, and then I tried it with the reverse chain stitch, and it just looked really bad. I really wanted it to look like, I don't know if you guys have seen Embroidery. Her lettering is just so effortless and amazing, and it is just not in me. So I ended up doing couching, and I think this looks really good. So you know, maybe that stitch is just not for me. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if you're working on it and you're hitting a wall and it's just not looking right, cut it out and try again. You might even see on here. No, you probably can't, but I have like little holes from where there was a lot of trial and error going on. So that's all. Oh no, I do want to back this real quick. I'm sure I've shown this before, but I can't remember the last time or where to refer people to, so let's just do this. So I don't actually cover the back. I leave it open. And I just cut around the edge. For glue, you can use craft glue like me, or you can use your hot glue gun. I still haven't bought one. I only have so many outlets. There's just one more thing, like, oh god, did I leave the glue gun on? Sometimes I have to circle the block to make sure I close the garage door. I don't want to have to worry about a glue gun. Okay. So here's my glue. I'm using Eileen's. I'm using acid-free. I heard acid-free is better long term. There we go. And then I'm just gonna curl these edges over. I've got some clamps. These are just generic craft clamps from Amazon. They're for quilting. So that's it. I'm just gonna go around and let this dry. One thing you wanna obviously make sure before you do this is that your fabric is nice and tight in your hoop. Like, I think I have a little something going on there, so I'm gonna tighten this a little extra. So once this is glued, you're done. Like that. So also if you want to like put fabric here or whatever, I just leave mine open. Just one less step. Oh, see how I have this dimple? I really don't want that. So I'm going to tighten that, and I'll meet you guys back here for the stitch along. Great, so let's go ahead and start stitching up some flowers. I am going to do this small rose here. So we're going to do, there goes my cap. The very center is going to be our French knots, so I do those last. When I do all the other ones, I just do all the French knots at once. So the center petals are going to be one color, and then the outer petals will be another color. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly like mine. We'll call these inner petals, I guess, maybe. Sure. And then do all the other ones the other color, or if you want to add these ones. I mean, it doesn't matter where the transition is. And then another thing you might want to do while you have a pen in your hand is figure out what you want your stitch direction to be. So I do have a tutorial all about satin stitch if you want to go check that out. Here's the Cliffnotes. Actually, it might not be Cliffnotes. We'll see. Basically, when you do satin stitch, the longer your stitches, the more chance you have for like your thread to be kind of twisting on itself. Therefore, the more chance you have for more texture, which is a good or a bad thing. If you want a very smooth satin stitch, you're going to want to use a single strand versus a full 6 ply that we're using, a full strand. And you'd probably want to have shorter stitches. I don't always have the patience for that, and for this pattern I did use a full strand of floss. And let's look at this shape. So you could go lengthwise, which is what I'm going to do. If you went this way, you would have to do more stitches, right? But they would be shorter, which is good. Here, I'll probably go this way. I'm just kind of going with the length of the shape. So whatever direction I would want to do to get the longest stitches in, even though I just said you don't want long stitches. These are still very short. I'm talking about like 1 inch. Like here, if I went like this, that might get a little funky. So for over here, maybe I would do a little, like an angle like this. Instead of like, if I went super short, I would go like this. Okay, and same over here. I could go really short stitches like that. If I did really long stitches here, they might get a little unstable if I went exactly parallel. So I'll probably do diagonal. So here, I don't know what we'll do here. Probably something diagonal, And then once again, if I did my longest stitch here, I might get a little crazy, so I'll do diagonal. So, I don't know. Let's do it. Some of it's just like practice, and you know, you might try one direction and decide you don't like it and take it out. Usually I do not mark my stuff up like this ahead of time because, I don't know, I can overthink it. And I think there's more than one direction that will work. So please don't think that yours is wrong because it doesn't look like mine. Absolutely not. So you can see I started in the center of my shape. I do like to do that every time because that helps me keep that stitch direction consistent when I go back and forth filling in here. So I'm doing one side and then the other. And I'm paying attention to my tension here. If I pull too tight, if I pull tighter than my fabric, that will cause my fabric to pucker. Pretty simple. So I try to match my tension to the tension of my fabric. If you find that you are getting puckers in your fabric, you can drink less coffee and have less tension in your life, or you can try tightening your fabric, right? So you can kind of mess with it in both directions. And some of it's practice. Like I know when I do like crochet, for example, I remember when I first started, it was way too tight, right? You kind of have to get some practice in and figure out, you know, what's the right tension. I kind of forgot a stitch over here. So sometimes when they lay weird, I kind of like tease them a little bit. Like there was a single ply that was not participating with its buddies. There we go. I do not have my fabric tight enough, by the way. I can't remember if I didn't tighten it, or maybe it's just my hoop is not working for me right now. So if you have that problem, there's a couple things you can do with your hoop. You could use a different hoop. The hoops that I have in my kits are just the cheap craft ones. I do offer some fancier ones in my shop. They're definitely more expensive, but sometimes it's nice to just have one good quality stitching hoop, and then use the cheapy ones just for framing. If you don't want to do that, you can use the cheapy ones. You could just kind of alter them. And to do that, you can use some tape, fabric tape, or just fabric to bind your hoops. Basically, what you're doing is you're making the distance between the inner hoop and the outer hoop smaller so that your fabric is more easily catched. So you can see with mine, I think over here it's like a little loose because the hoops aren't perfect, you know. Plus, I think I'm pushing on it with my hand. So, order of operation here. I like to start in the center of these roses when I'm doing these petals. And you can see, well, okay. I know I was heading to the right, but I'm going to head to the left of my center line here real quick. So you can see, because I like to come down here, rather than up into my previous petal that I've already worked, if that makes sense. I feel like if I came up through here, I might pull some of my previous stitches up with me. I don't think that's really that big of a concern, but for me, now it's just kind of habit to do it that way. Now let's try it. Let me go on the other side for a second so I don't undo that stitch. But I will come up here. See, nothing bad happened. I don't know, I just have this like paranoia. So, yeah, I guess I don't need to worry about that. And I guess you could argue that it's harder to see when I came up through here where I was coming up versus if I go the other way, I have a better idea of where I'm going down. I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those weird habits. So if you want to start with the flowers, start with the flowers. If you want to start with the leaves, start with the leaves. If you want to do the outer petals first, do it. Okay, let's go on to the next color. So this one's kind of a funky shape. I think I'm gonna, so I could do like this, but then it's gonna be the exact same direction as this one, which is totally fine. But just for kicks, I'm gonna do the opposite diagonal. So I'm gonna go this way. This will be my last petal, I think. Next is going to be the Fishbone Leaves. I just did a Fishbone Stitch tutorial. So if you want to know way too much information about that stitch, please check out the tutorial on my website. There's also a video, multiple videos. I really like that stitch. But with any of the leaves here, you are welcome to mix it up and do different stitches. You could do satin stitch, you could make a vein down the center and turn it into like 2 different sections of satin stitch. I really want to do like a tutorial of just like all the different stitches you can use on a leaf. But I keep meaning to make a pattern like that first. So we'll get there. The list is so long. So here, let me show you. I'm going to do, so this one could technically go all the way across, but what can happen sometimes is that it covers the previous petal a little bit, the previous shape that I'm trying to stitch around. And in this case, it really wouldn't matter that much. It's a rose, like they all look different. It's okay if one petal looks slightly different than what I initially set it out to look, but just to demo this. So then I'll do another stitch here that will cut all the way across. And I'll put one more stitch here just to round out this shape a little bit. Okay. So then I'm just heading back. I'm going back into that hole, so these will meet up. So you do get like texture there, so you might, that might be why you wouldn't want to do it that way. But it just helps define this edge more, I think, doing it that way. Fill these last couple of stitches in, and we will move on. Oops. Someone needs to invent a screw cap for the hoops so that we don't get our thread tangled on our screws. Okay, so let's take a look at this leaf here. I'm going to just put the vein down the center just to make it easier as I talk about this stitch. And here we go. So I'm going to come up at the very top, covering those guidelines, and go straight down. And then I will go back and forth. So this pre-printed fabric is pretty cool, but obviously you need to make sure you cover all those guidelines because they're not going anywhere. They're definitely permanent. Oh, I just stabbed myself under the fabric. In case you haven't figured it out, I am stitching this upside down. So this is the motif that's on the bottom. Hi, kitty. What's going on? Let's see, where am I? I don't want to build up too much here. I did kind of a low-waisted fishbone here. If you check out the tutorial, you can see there's a lot of different variations you can do with this stitch. So if you want it, usually I cross it a little higher when I start because now it's going to turn into a satin stitch leaf, basically. So now that I don't have anywhere to cross anymore at the ends, I'll basically just fill the rest in with satin. Oh. My cat is eating my embroidery pattern. What is wrong with him? So my favorite scissors, they're titanium, so they're really lightweight, which I love. But the bad news is that he can actually pick them up. And so when I'm stitching on the couch, he has this habit of stealing my scissors. He picks them up by the handle and just runs off with them. He's very naughty. So usually I like to do, starting from the center of the roses, working out, and then I do the large leaves here that I'm doing in Fishbone. I just consider whatever the leaves coming out from the roses, those are our large leaves, if you're looking at the pattern there. Okay, let's go ahead and do this little vine here. This is going to be Fern Stitch. I do it the stabbing method, so it basically just turns into a bunch of back stitches. So at this point I have to do it, well, I guess it is still a back stitch because I'm going in the opposite direction. Yeah. Yep. These ones I'm doing more like forward stitches. But there's like a specific order you're supposed to do this in to make it Fern Stitch, but I don't know what that is. I try to look at diagrams and I get confused. I'm just like, just make stitches. Okay, I finished that up. I'm going to start this guy over here. This one's going to be a stem stitch for the vine. And I am bad at stem stitch, so I'm going to do my own version of it. This is also in my stitch guide. I include both versions. I used to do the wrong version thinking it was the right version. At least now I know that this is not actually a stem stitch. It's more like back stem stitch. What was that? Oh, that's my scissors. Where did those come from? When I do the traditional stem stitch, I tend to make a mess of things. Hey, come on. Come on. Bye-bye. I would have liked to have fed them before filming, because then they would have left me alone, but they're on a diet. He's making a little nest. He's going to take a nap. Oh, I realized that I lied to you guys. This is not the bottom. I don't know why I told you it was the bottom. I have a tangle. This is the top of the hoop, hence why the screw is over here. You know, the top of the hoop. So sorry about that. We are upside down. So, using a full strand of floss, you want to make sure you have a needle that you can work with. The eye should be big enough for you to get your floss through. I include size 5 needles. For the most part, I think people are doing okay with those. Once in a while, you know, some people struggle with threading those. I would suggest making sure that your floss is crisply cut. So kind of make a nice point with your floss. Give it a little lick. If you don't want to spit on your embroidery, then use some water. It'll just make it a lot easier if you don't have those frayed edges of your floss that you're trying to get through the eye of your needle. Another thing you could do is actually take like a double length of floss, split it in half, so you only have 3 strands. Put that on your needle. That should be a lot easier. And then double it up. So the center of that long piece of floss will be through the eye of your needle. The 2 ends will meet, and you can just, you know, floss like that. Obviously, or stitch like that. The issue is that, you know, once you get to the end, your needle's stuck on there, so you're going to have to cut that floss off. Plan ahead for that. I have a knot. Okay, so for the leaves, I'll do this one first. I just did satin stitch. Some of these leaves are super small, so it's only going to take a couple stitches. But just the same that we've been doing, like on the petals, but we're just doing little leaves. If you want, you could have these be a fishbone stitch or anything else. Get creative. Okay, just a bunch of parallel stitches. If you want, you could have them more angled. I guess that would almost be like a fishbone. So instead of them all being parallel, kind of converge them. Looks pretty darn similar. Just makes the base look a little bit more clean, I think, if you do it that way. Over here, this I'm calling the triple leaf stitch. I don't know what it is. It's just 3 stitches kind of in the shape of a leaf. So that's what those are. I just wanted to do one here so you can see what it looks like overlapping. And you just kind of pretend like those other stitches aren't there. And it's up to you if you want to do the fern over this vine or below. I did it below, and that's just habit, but there's really no good reason not to do it the opposite way. So I will leave that up to you, what you want to do. So that's it. I mean, it just, yeah, that's it. Okay, let's jump back over here. I'm going to do back stitch for the vein. That's not the right word. Alright, I'm doing back stitch here for this vine. Keep tangling my thread here. Here we go. Alright, so back stitch for the stem, and then I'm just going to come in and do some detached chain leaves. But here, you know, on these ones I left blank. You can not put any leaves. You could practice your favorite leaves. You can do detached chain, but you could do them smaller, you could do them bigger, you could do twice as many, half as many. This is where you can be creative. Sometimes I like to fill with a different color. So you go in with like a single stitch inside your little loops there. And also, here I am just like jumping in. You can definitely like use a pen and figure out what you're going to do ahead of time instead of just blindly jumping in like I just did, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Okay, we are almost done here. I just want to show you these leaves real quick because I kind of just talked about them really quick before. So you can see I have like a V drawn in here. You can either turn these V's into leaves like this, okay, if you just want to do regular leaves, or you can pretend there's like a center leaf like that. So that's what I did on mine here. I don't know, I just call this the triple leaf. I don't know. It's not very exciting of a name. So I didn't mention it, but usually I do stitch the vine before stitching the leaves. Here I am not, because I just didn't want to take the time before starting this. So there you go. That's what that triple leaf is. It's just 3 straight stitches converging at the vine. That's it. So yeah, if you don't like that, you can pretend it's just a regular leaf like these over here. Here you can see I did the triple leaf. So that's that. All right, let's just finish up then with our lettering. So I decided to do You Are Enough. So here is the tracing I did. You can see, like, originally I had You Are on a top row and then Enough. And then it kind of got weird. So I played with it. Basically, that's what I'm trying to tell you you can do. So you have tape on here. So, you know, like, where do I want the U? Do I want it next to the R? And I decided to do lowercase for the A there. So, you know, play and see how you want it to go. Yeah. So there's definitely room for you guys to get creative with that. So then once I had it in the arrangement I stuck it on my scanner and copied it at 120% to get it this size. Obviously, if you have more words, you'll probably want to keep it this size or even shrink it if you have tons of words. If you only have one big word, you're probably going to want to multiply by 150, maybe even 200%, depending on how big you want. So there you go. And then I just traced it on here. So please check out that lettering tutorial for more options. There's so many different ways to do this. So I am just going to show you what I did with the couching. And basically, I used my thread like I would use a pen. So anytime, if you were drawing this, so for the Y, it's all one big piece. Here, at the O, you can go down here and come back up here, or you can double it up. Okay? And here, yeah, this is all one. So technically, I could do the U all in one piece. For the A, I would probably go up here, down there, back up here, and come up like this. Okay? So, and you can kind of think of that as far as like, how would you write that? Would you keep your pen down the whole time? You can do it all with it all down. Here it gets weird, right? So you probably want to stop and then come back here. My hands are all shaky. Whoa! Let me just pull this up here for a second. Something to point. Okay. So yeah. Here you can see the M. You can see I doubled up here. So I actually did come down and then back up. But then here I was like, oh, I don't know if I want it this thick. So I went down with my thread here and back up here. Otherwise, I would have had the double thickness at this point. What else can I tell you? Here, I went down, back up at the top of the T, and then back down here. For the H, I came up here, went up, down, doubled up for a little bit. For the I did not double up. I went down here and back up here, etc. So, yeah, it's fun. I like it. I think it's my new favorite way to do lettering. It can get a little confusing keeping track of what's going on here, but it's not bad. So like I said, I don't know what the best thing to do with this thread, so I'm just gonna park this needle over here off to the side. And then, so this is a full strand, and then I just have the single strand here that I'm going to use to do the actual couching. And yeah, I just get to it. So I try to stay on my guideline, obviously, and I just maneuver my thread around. In my stitching tutorial, the lettering tutorial, excuse me, I used variegated floss and 2 different colors of floss to get a different effect, which is kind of fun. But here I just wanted a more serious look with this navy. Oh, I didn't do French knots for you guys. I forgot. So French knots go in the little circles, obviously, and then also the centers of the flowers. So as far as how far apart I'm making these little couching tacking stitches, it's going to be kind of the same as far as, you know, the tighter your curves, the more stitches you'll need. It's kind of true of any stitch. So like when I'm crossing a T, I actually don't even couch it. I just make a stitch. Unless it's like a super big lettering, then I might make a tacking stitch in the center just to keep it from being floppy, but so that's it. I don't know. Thanks for watching. I guess I'll keep going till my phone runs out of juice. So I found at these directional changes, sometimes it helps to add extra stitch. So let's see, I'll do one more up here, so it's gonna actually be tacked down with like 2 threads up here, just next to each other. Oops, just got hooked on my needle there. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back down. So I'm gonna come down farther than I need to, just to get this out of my way. And just gently tug, and then I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to couch over both since I'm doubling it up. So I'm kind of couching it to itself, and I'll pull again. You don't want to pull too hard, because then you're going to, the single strand is going to give to the full strand. So it's kind of puffy from the side, so I'm going to actually come back and do another stitch up here. But I just kind of made this up, I guess. And because I'm using the same color floss, you really can't tell that I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff in there. I think in the lettering tutorial, since I used a different color, I tried to keep my tacking stitches like more evenly spaced, because it gives that kind of stripey look to your lettering. Versus here, you know, no one's gonna see it unless they get really, really close with perfect lighting. Okay, let's see. guess I should do a French knot. Blah, blah. What color should I do? I don't want to use the blue. Okay, they're supposed to be blue, but because I'm just doing a quick demo. Here we go. I'm going to cut these out, actually. Okay. So I just do like one wrap, like that, and then place the tip of my needle very, very close to where I came up. Pull to the left, that's very important. And then pop. Oh, that was a good pop. There it goes. It can be hard to pull through. All right, that's all I got. Thanks, guys.